Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time watching, my name is Jordan. I am a soon-to-be 2 under 2 mom with an almost 10-month-old, and I'm also currently 5 months pregnant. Today I wanted to go over my first year favorites, so those baby items that kind of got us through the first year that I don't know how I would have survived without them. So I'm going to try to segment these in categories, but I feel like the majority of them are either sleep or play related. Starting off with our sleep category, first thing is the Snuggle Me Baby Lounger, which I know technically this is not for sleep, but we did use it for supervised naps. The Snuggle Me Lounger honestly was a lifesaver because I feel like you could take it anywhere around the house. We also had our pack and play with the bassinet attachment set up in our living room, so that was where the majority of his daytime naps happened for the first, I would say, like month or two. But the Snuggle Me Lounger is so versatile because we could set it on the couch and we can set him in there and kind of walk away for a couple seconds and know that he's not, which he wasn't rolling, but we could know that he's not gonna like roll over. He's kind of snuggled in there. We would also put it like on our kitchen table when we were eating dinner, just so like it gave him, he was close to us, it gave him somewhere to be near us, and it kind of kept him contained, and he loved it. I feel like transitioning him like from sleeping in our arms when we had to set him down, this was the easiest transition because you're putting him in something that kind of hugs him still. So that was one of our favorites very early on. Next in the sleep category is our flip over nightlight. I just got this off Amazon and I saw this on somebody else's video when I was making my baby registry, and it was one of my favorite things for those late night feeds, especially when he's still in our room, obviously. But it's just this little round nightlight that it stays on, you flip it over and it turns off, and then when he wakes up and you have to feed him or change him, you can just flip it over, and it's bright enough to kind of illuminate my side of the room without waking up my husband and like turning on a lamp or putting too much bright light in the baby's eyes to where it wakes him up. So the flip over nightlight was honestly one of my favorites. Sticking with the sleep category, next is 2 different swaddles that we use. The first one we use from, I would say, like 0 to 4 months maybe, and then we transitioned to the second swaddle once he kind of started rolling over. So the first is our Arms Up Love to Dream swaddle. I could not swaddle him for the life of me. Even in the hospital, the nurses could do it fine, but then he would still kind of wiggle his arms out. I feel like he naturally just wanted his arms higher up by his chest or by his face. So while I was still in the hospital, I actually sent my mom home because I knew I had this already at home, but I didn't pack it in my hospital bag to get the Arms Up swaddle. And we used it ever since because it was so much easier than a traditional swaddle, and it was also still more secure than the Velcro swaddles, and it was much quieter. So the Arms Up swaddle we used until he started to kind of be able to roll, and then we transitioned to the Halo or the Kite Baby. We have used both and I like both of them a lot. So that is what we're still using now, and it's not weighted technically, but it definitely has I would say a little bit of compression to it, but it's just a sleep sack, so it keeps him nice and warm, keeps him still compressed. It's sleeveless, so his arms are free, and we love them. Next is our mesh crib bumpers. I don't know how I would have survived without these. We bought them after we had a few issues of him getting his legs stuck in between the crib bars. So we would put him in his crib for naps, and then once we transitioned him to his crib for overnights, there was a couple nights in a row where he would like squirm around in his sleep and he stuck his leg through the bars and it would get stuck, and he woke up screaming. And the first night I just kind of fixed him and it didn't happen again, and then it happened twice the next night, and I immediately went on Amazon and ordered the mesh crib bumpers so he could not get his leg stuck again, and we have not had any issues. We still have them on the crib now. I haven't tried to take them off just because I'm scared that he's still gonna end up getting his leg stuck, but those are a lifesaver if you find that your baby is kind of getting their arms or their legs stuck, or even just like not even stuck, but you find them sticking a limb through the crib while they're sleeping, and now you're just watching them nonstop on the baby monitor until they pull their limb back in the crib. So I would definitely recommend that if you have a squirmy baby. And then as far as like pajamas or sleepers go, my ultimate favorite, which it took me a while to kind of figure these out or find these, is the Old Navy sleepers. I will say I only like the ones up to the 6 to 9 months, because after that they kind of transition to their like toddler sleepers, which is 12 months and up, and they are not made the same. So anything from newborn to the 6 to 9 months, I love them. I feel like the hand covers stayed. We had an issue with a lot of his pajamas. The hand covers would kind of like flip open, or he would get his hand out in the middle of the night and end up scratching himself. So the Old Navy ones I feel like are the best for keeping the hands covered, and they just fit well. They're not too thin, not too thick, and they go on nice and easy. Double zipper, so I love those. Unfortunately, I haven't found another one that I like equally for the size that he's in now, but all the way up till 9 months, Old Navy sleepers, my favorite. Last in the sleep category is our Nanit camera. We had this set up when he was first sleeping in our room. We would just put it on the stand that it comes with, so it wasn't attached to the wall or anything. And then now that he's in his own room, we have it mounted to the wall. I will say, I wish I had in addition to it was a portable baby monitor, so that we can kind of take something on vacation with us, or if we're like going over to a friend's or family's house, we have a monitor that we could bring with us. But other than that, I love it. And I also love the insights that comes with the app, because it tracks their sleep for you. So it sets kind of like a timer. So when you put them down, it tells you how long they've been asleep for. So you don't have to try to track it yourself. It tells you how long it's been since they've last been in their crib. It records any movement through the night. So I love the Nanit, highly recommend it. So that is it for our sleep category. Next is, I would say, like a feeding category. There's only 2 items in this. The first is the Boppy, and this is in the feeding category because it's like a breastfeeding or a feeding pillow, but we used it for so much more than that, so this is why I'm recommending it. It is a nursing pillow. It goes around your waist so you can nurse them, which was very nice, especially with a heavier baby, not having to just hold them in your arms. Even for people that would bottle feed, it was very nice because they could have something to kind of support their elbow. And then after feeding, we would also use it for tummy time. So we would kind of put his chest on the Boppy to keep him a little more elevated. He was not a fan of tummy time on a mat or on the floor, so most of his tummy time was either him laying on my chest or him on the Boppy, and we can kind of put toys in front of him or a mirror. We also used it when he was still learning to sit unassisted on his own. So we would kind of put the pillow around his hips, and it would give him a little bit of support on the sides when he's still learning to sit upright, just help him learn to sit unassisted. So we use it for all 3 of those things, I would say, until maybe about 5 months is when he learned how to sit up unassisted, 5 or 6. So we used it all through the first 6 months of his life, and we just put it in storage, and I am about to get it out again for my next baby. So I would highly recommend the Boppy if you're considering it, because it's so much more than just a feeding pillow. And the last thing in our feeding category is our Komotomo bottle attachments. So they have a few different styles. We started with the one that's for 3 months and up, but it's basically a little straw attachment that goes inside the regular bottle nipple, so you don't have to change the nipple, but it allows them to feed themselves in a more upright position. There's like a weighted straw that goes down in the bottom so they can sit either in their stroller or their car seat or just in their high chair and feed themselves. My son had reflux, so feeding him laying down, he wasn't super stoked about it. So now anytime that we're feeding him and it's not before a nap or before bedtime, he kind of self-feeds using the straw attachment, and he loves it. I love it. He's not spitting up as much. And they also have other attachments that kind of transitions after the traditional bottle nipple to kind of a straw cup or a sippy cup. So I really love those. They're fairly cheap, and I don't know how we would have survived without them. My final category is kind of our play category. So there's a couple items on here that have been really beneficial basically from the time he was born up until now for his play. So I'll kind of try to put these in order of what we first started using up until what we started using towards the end, or what we're still using now. The first is our Baby Delight rocker. It's different than the Baby Bjorn bouncer. It's not as bouncy, obviously it's more of a rocker, but we loved it again because it allowed us to lay him down, but he was still a little bit elevated. It helped with his reflux, and he didn't love laying on his back, so to have something that was a little bit of an incline, we could rock it if we wanted to. Once he got a little older and he would kick his legs, he could rock it himself, but it wasn't like super bouncy like the Baby Bjorn. And it just gave him somewhere to kind of like sit up and content and look around. We could put toys in front of him, and he stayed in it for quite a bit. Next is something that we started using very early on as well, and that is the Fisher-Price piano mat. So we started using this when he was probably 1 or 2 months. We kind of put him under it, and it was probably the thing that gave me the most sanity, especially when they hit like that 1-2 month mark and they're more awake, more aware, but it's still kind of hard to keep them entertained. This piano mat was heaven. So we would put him under it. There's obviously the piano that he could look at, the lights, and then when you lay them on their back, they have that bar with the hanging toys, and he loved them. The hanging toys, the little blue elephant, is actually the first thing he reached out to try to grab, and then once he kind of transitioned out of like just laying down, looking up, batting at the toys or grabbing the toys, We used it to help him with tummy time. He could look at the piano. And then even when he would go to sitting unassisted or learning to sit unassisted, this is where we would use that boppy. So we'd put the boppy around his hips and we put him in front of the piano and he could kind of lean forward and try to hit the buttons. And even now we still sometimes use it. Took the piano completely off and we put it like in his playpen or on his high chair tray, and he still loves the piano part. But we have used that basically since birth. Next is something that we started using around 3 or 4 months, and that is the Skip Hop Activity Center. So it's just a stationary activity center that they can be completely upright in. Obviously, once they get head and neck and core control, that's when we transitioned him to it, but there's little toys that you can put all around it, and he loved this. We recently stopped using it just because now he's so mobile that like if we put him in it, he's not in it for very long because he gets kind of bored. But the first, I would say between like 3 and 6 months, he loved this. This was so nice for me. I could set him in it and go do the dishes or make a bottle. And he was pretty content for, I would say, maybe 20 or 30 minutes at a time. So this was very nice to kind of give me a little bit of break if I needed it, but he was still entertained and content, and he's not mobile around the house in it, so it just sits in one spot. I don't have to worry about him walking around like I would in a walker, running over the dogs. I could put it in his playpen if I wanted to kind of keep the dogs away from him, and it still gave him enough freedom to kind of hang out and play. And the very last thing on my list is our play yard. We still use this to this day. Every single day of our lives we use this. I set it up when he started rolling and the pack and play was just getting a little bit too small for him, because the pack and play is pretty small and rectangular, so it doesn't give them a ton of room. I would say it's more for like lounging, sleeping, and then once he was able to kind of roll over on his own, I knew he needed a little bit more space to be able to do that. So we set up our play yard instead, and it's about 4 by 4. I think it might be a little bit bigger than that, but not much. So we would use it for tummy time, and now we still use it if I'm needing to like get ready in the morning. We put a few toys in there, and it gives him a space to kind of independent play where he's somewhat supervised, but I don't have to be sitting there watching him the entire time because he's obviously contained and he can't go anywhere, and I know that everything in it is safe. Those are my top items for our first year. Again, most of them are geared towards like up until 6 months, I would say, except for the play yard. Now that he's mobile, he just wants to explore. He wants to crawl around. He'll play with anything. The other day, we gave him a lime, and he played with the lime off a lime tree for like an hour. Once they get a little older, it's not as necessary. Most of these are geared towards like that awkward 2 to 6 months where they're awake and aware, but they still need to be entertained by you more, and they need a little bit more assistance. So yeah, these items, I do not know how I could have lived without them, and I will be using all of these with my second. If there's anything on this list that you love that I missed that you could not live without, let me know in the comments below what those are.